Good afternoon again to some of the members here, and welcome to our Executive Subcommittee of Learning and Families on Wednesday, the 2nd of April. Have we any apologies or substitutions, please, Kirsten?
Thanks, Convener. We have an apology from Councillor Carr, and all other elected members are in the chambers.
Thank you, Kirsten. Any declarations of interest from members, or can I move on? Thank you. The paper 3, I'm going to let David introduce this, please, and thank you.
Thank you, Convener. So paper 3 is the regular standards and quality in schools, learning communities and preschool centres, daycare of children report. I do apologise.
Can we agree the minutes of the last meeting? Sorry, Bailey. I'm getting complacent. Second meeting of the day, you see, I'm getting complacent. Can we agree the minutes? Thank you very much. So paper 4 is the standards and quality in schools, learning communities and preschool. And I'm delighted to welcome the head teacher of Carmichael here. So thanks very much, Craig, for coming down. David.
Thanks, and take 2 for this one. So yeah, I'd like to introduce the standards and quality in schools, learning communities and preschool centres, daycare of children report. A regular report that comes to this committee whenever we've had inspection activity from the Care Inspectorate or Education Scotland. Since the last report, we have had 11 inspections of daycare of children by the Care Inspectorate. We've had 40 ratings. As part of that, 19 were very good, 17 good and 4 adequate. And we've also had an HMI short model inspection of Kirkmichael Primary School. I'm going to pass over to Mrs Jill Dugan in a minute to talk about that inspection process, and she'll introduce the head teacher of the school, Mr Craig Loudon, and he'll tell us a bit about what's been happening, progress and next steps, and we'll invite some questions for the head teacher around about that point. After that, we'll let Mr Loudon go back to his head teachering because he's a busy man, and we'll invite questions on other aspects of the paper. Thanks. So I'd like to introduce Mrs Jill Dugan, Service Manager Primary School.
Good afternoon. Kirkmichael Primary School was inspected in October 2024 using the short model inspection, which means the 2 quality indicators that were looked at were 2.3, learning, teaching and assessment, and 3.2, raising attainment and achievement. During the inspection, both of these quality indicators were evaluated as good, and the following strengths of the school were found by the inspection team during the visit. They were around the staff and children who take account of children's rights. The children are polite, kind and respectful, and there's a positive ethos in the school. Highly motivated and engaged children who experience a range of learning activities, and they take account of the school context, leading to good progress of the children in literacy and numeracy. And the commitment of all staff to meet the needs of the children in school in terms of meeting the needs of all learners and those who require support. There were some areas for improvement identified, and these were around continuing to develop approaches to learning, teaching and assessment to ensure that consistently high quality learning and teaching experience for all children, and further develop the approaches to tracking and monitoring across all areas of the curriculum, making even better use of data to address closing the gap. And so I'm going to pass to Craig, who's going to give you an update on progress to date and some actions and next steps.
Okay, thank you everyone for the warm welcome. So I've identified 3 of the main points for action arising from the HMI visit. And I've just got some bullet points to explain to you about what we've done already and what we're planning to do going forward. So the first one is to continue to develop approaches to learning, teaching and assessment to ensure all children experience consistently high quality learning. So we'd already identified this as a priority in our self-evaluation from the previous academic session. So we have been developing a whole school learning and teaching framework. The principal teacher has been part of the Aspiring Schools programme this session, and this has been one of our school improvement outcomes. This work will be completed by the end of next term and embedded next session as a key priority. This will help us to ensure that our learning, teaching assessments are robust, well planned and allow for consistent high quality learning, teaching and assessment to take place. We are continuing to engage fully with the current LMG focus on moderation of learning and teaching approaches, and we are seeking new opportunities to work with colleagues in other schools with similar demographics and multi-composite classes to moderate learning, teaching and assessment practice. So that covers the first action point. The next one we have is further develop the tracking and monitoring of pupils' progress across all curriculum areas. So what we're doing here is we're looking to incorporate the PKC guidance and tracking and monitoring for all areas of the curriculum, which is currently being developed. We're looking towards the next academic session for this to be established and further embedded. We will continue to analyse our whole school data to identify any gaps in learning across the curriculum, and this will be supported by national standardised assessment results and teachers' professional judgment. Class attainment data is analysed and discussed at tracking meetings, which take place 3 times a session, with individual support in place for each child who's not on track with their learning. We will continue to make use of the Closing the Gap tool to identify, track and evaluate the impact of any interventions. We are now utilising the national benchmarks for moderation and assessment in order to support teachers' professional judgment of progress towards an achievement of a level in all curricular areas. The final point that I'd like to address this afternoon is for teachers ensuring that all children are fully challenged in their learning in order to continue to raise attainment in literacy and numeracy. So on this one, we are continuing with peer and school leadership observations and evaluations as we plan, but with increased focus on differentiation, pace and challenge. We're also undertaking more moderation activities with specific focus on pace and challenge and lesson planning. Numeracy and literacy focus groups have been established this term for high achieving pupils in both classes. The aim is to support, stretch and challenge these pupils further in their learning. Pupils and parents have this term reported higher levels of motivation, confidence and enjoyment arising from these interventions that we put in place. Teachers are also reporting greater levels of confidence in their planning and the delivery of challenge for identified pupils. And that is a summary of the key action points arising from the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Jill, as well. Any questions for Mr. Loudon, please? Councillor Cuthbert.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, and thank you for your report. It's always good to see goods coming out of an inspection. A couple of questions for you. The first one, do you know what your self-evaluation scores were for the 2 areas prior to the inspection? Were they both good or were they different?
Yes, thank you. So they were both good. Yeah. So the report found what we had assessed ourselves as in our evaluation.
That's good. So they reflected the self-evaluation scores. The second question revolves around the mobile phone policy. And I was just wondering whether you had one, whether you were going to implement one, and do you actually have a signal up there?
Yes, we do, thankfully. Our Wi-Fi is actually pretty good, surprisingly. Been good investment up in the area in that. Yes, we do have mobile phone guidance in place for our school, and there's been a lot of work done on that recently. And I know in secondary schools, and that's filtered down to the primaries as well. Obviously, it's been a big area of discussion, and we're very well supported by PKC and the guidance for that. So we don't have too many issues with that in our school itself, but we certainly have had to follow parts of the guidance before, and we do so. Thank you.
David?
I was just going to ask, and what is the policy? Is it to have no mobile phones, or is it only in certain areas, or how are you working it?
So we actually were one of the schools to the third school in Perth and North to get our Digital Schools Award. We use laptops and iPads for learning and the pre-Unitarian boards. We don't use mobile devices, personal devices in school. We do allow children to bring mobiles if they need them for after school clubs or to contact parents for lifts home, but they hand them into the office at the start of the day and take them back at the end of the day or on agreement with staff. That's our current status.
Thanks very much. I should say at this point as well, because you're having to turn round, Northern Ireland Executive Sub we set it out differently because we've had it immediately after the learning and families. It's not ideal, but so apologies for that. But thank you for that, for those answers. Councillor Shires, please.
Thank you, Convener. Craig, I've got my notes here from the meeting that we held, and it feels like deepest, darkest winter when we all came up to Kirkmichael for the HMI meeting. And thank you for the presentation he gave today and the presentation that he gave back at that meeting. It was about the literacy and numeracy, and at the meeting that we had, you talked about development of paired reading across the school and how that was helping build learners' confidence. How's that progressing? And since the meeting, I think it was January, I can't actually remember when it was, but it was January. So it's a couple of months on from that to understand. And one of the, obviously I know Kirkmichael well, being within my ward, and I always appreciate when I go into the school the opportunity for the inter-class, you know, the little ones working alongside the older pupils on projects and things. So the reading was one that was of particular interest, and I'm kind of gutted that you didn't bring the reading phones with you as you promised that you would, so that committee could see, because it was a really innovative way of just bringing a bit of fun into the classroom as well. So a bit around that would be really helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Showers, for that question. And yes, what we've done this term is picking up on what you said there, the strength of the school working together. We've had a lot of work going on with the community garden, which has been developed in the village. So we decided to take that opportunity on Friday afternoons. We now divide that into 4 half-hour sessions in their houses. So we've got primary ones up to P7s, and we include the nursery as well in this. So for half an hour, they go up to community garden and take part in activities there, led by members of the community. We do a library half-hour session where they can choose a book themselves and sit and read on their own. And they also have a member of staff that can read to them if they wish. The other half hour is paired reading, where Mrs. Fleming, the infant teacher, is actually teaching the intricacies of paired reading. It's not just sitting down with a book with a partner, it's actually reading together, reading pages around, helping the younger reader with the reading to develop. So they've really enjoyed that. And the other half-hour session is a STEM activity. We've had a lot of science in our curriculum this year. We've had lots of workshops, generation science, and other STEM activities going on. So that was another opportunity to do that within that rotation. So the children are really enjoying that. We're seeing lots of learning taking place on a Friday afternoon, even though everybody's tired. But yeah, so that's been really positive in terms of bringing on the reading, those 2 particular sessions that you mentioned as well. And the library is going as strongly as ever with Mrs. Mitchell in charge. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shars.
Got an amazing school library up there if you get a chance to go and have a look. My second question was around data, and you mentioned that, I can't remember the exact phrase that you used, but it was about parents had reported that children were feeling more confident, and it's how the opportunities that you take to spend time interrogating the data that you have within the school, so that you all know, you kind of know what you know, but if it's evidence through the data gathering.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, through sharing results and learning with the children, through learning conversations, and with learning journals up and running properly now as well with the parents, we're able to make that an ongoing thing. And in terms of the data, just spending our time looking at the trends over time is challenging in a small school with data, as we all know. And it's, for me as well, the cohorts change. So people in the group we have in primary 1, by the time you get to primary 7, you can have 5 new pupils and 4 have left since primary 1. So you're not comparing like for like, but we can still pick out trends and patterns. And we know our children, but we still obviously use the triangulation of the data to inform our learning teaching as we go. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no more questions, I'll just invite comments, I guess, as well. Councillor Shars.
Just to say that I was pleased to see the report. I expected to see what I saw, and I think that's one of the strengths of Kirkmichael, is and actually a lot of the schools within the Blairgowrie High School cluster, is they are quite robust in knowing where they are, and I think in education speak, was it moderating each other's, assessing where each other are and being quite honest about that, and I think that's very much one of Mr. Loudon's strengths, if I might add that, Craig. And we're really pleased and just wish the school well on its journey. It's very much one of those rural schools that is very much at the heart of the community. Everything sort of rotates around the school, and there has been significant investment in the school building and the environment round about it, which we were very pleased to see when we went up to the meeting as well. And I can't undervalue that in terms of making the school and the staff feel that, you know, we actually hadn't forgotten about them stuck up a Glen. But also the landscape of education in the Glen has changed over the years, with 2 smaller schools closing in recent times. So the focus is on Kirkmichael, but all of those strengths were very much shown in the report. So that's encouraging. And he didn't bring the reading phone with him, so you need to get him to do that next time.
Thanks very much, Councillor Shaz. I know it's a school that's close to your heart, so those comments are really appreciated, and apologies that I didn't make it up for the public meeting. I can't remember why. I'm fairly sure I wasn't skiving. I think there was good reason, but if there's an opportunity to come up with Councillor Shires and or the other members in the ward, I would really appreciate that, because I do like, I'm old fashioned, I do like a book, so I'd like to see a nice library, and I'm intrigued by reading phones, so that would be nice at some point. The only thing I want to add, I mean, we say it often here at Executive Sub, but just because we say it often doesn't mean to say it's not true, but there is a high bar with HMIE, so if you've got 2 goods, it means it is good. So if you could take all the committees' thanks back to you and your team, that would be really appreciated. And once again, thanks very much for coming down. Thank you. Thank you. Well, as Mr. Loudon's leaving us to go and do his proper job, we'll move on to the rest of the report, please, which will be introduced by, you've got David's kind of introduced it, so thank you. So questions for the main body of the report, please, at this point. Councillor Cuthbert.
There's a wry smile on your face there. I really wanted to highlight the sort of the information contained in Appendix 2, I think it is. Yes. I've asked in the past about this. This is to do with the secondary schools and where we stand in terms of the quality indicators that we're getting. When you look at the chart on page 18, 14% of our QIs are above good or better, and that means that 86%, if my maths is right, is below. And now my view on this is that the only indicators we've really got of how our schools are doing are the quality indicators. And I would really like to see a report coming to committee which highlights the self-evaluation scores, because we've just heard that they're matching up more or less now, that are below good or better, with an explanation of how we're going to raise each of them up for each school, just talking about secondary schools here. So we can actually get an idea of how we're going to get those QIs up to the good or better standard. And I'd like, if possible, to see a report on that brought to committee.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask Mr. McCluskey for his opinion on that. I think to bring a report on how we're getting there in every school might be difficult. I don't know, but I do appreciate the idea of where there's not been an inspection of noting the self attainment. It's not the word. Thank you. I do appreciate that factual bit of it. I'm not quite convinced about the report and how we improve it, but maybe Mr. McCluskey has views on that.
Yeah, thanks. So I suppose what's problematic for myself, Councillor Cuthbert, is this idea that we would somehow take out one sector and treat them in a specific way, round about going through a school by school basis of self-evaluation, then a detailed action plan that sits underneath that. What schools do is they publish obviously their own standards and quality reports, and you know, we obviously publish them, and they could be part of what we discuss here as well. I think there's a lot of reasons why I don't believe it would be appropriate to bring those individual self-evaluations and action plans to this forum, because I think that's part of the job of school head teachers, leadership teams and the officers that support them to help do that. I think the strength, and there is strength in the HMIE process, because that is that external validation. And let's be honest, you're asking that question today because the historic inspections that we've had in the secondary sector, while few in number, have not all created the type of results that we would want to have as we're moving forward. So I do understand where that comes from, but I do think it probably crosses that line slightly between the operational work that we do as officers and your job as an exec sub to make sure that there's some kind of rigour around about that scrutiny.
I do think noting the self-evaluation in itself might be appropriate. And happy to have that conversation with officers after. You're going to come back. I think my eyes smile, by the way, wasn't in any disparaging way for you asking a question. It's because I'm failing to have any kind of flow here at this executive sub. So that was where the eyes smile came from. But I'm happy for you to follow up on what Mr. McCluskey said.
Yeah, I think I take this incredibly seriously. The quality indicators are the only indicators that we as councillors are getting, if you like, of how schools are doing. If we're showing that we've got weak standards at any of our secondary schools and it gets inspected, it comes here, at which point it's too late because the inspection's been done. What I'm trying to suggest is that we try and look ahead. It doesn't need to be as detailed as the standards and qualities report, because I could go online and pull them out, but it's more of a brief summary so we can. It's really trying to get an emphasis on that we're actually moving forward, because currently we're failing, frankly. 14% are above good or better. And if you read the definition of what is good, it's only a scraped pass. So anything below that, which is 86% of our historical surveys, are below that standard. And I'd take a really strong view on this. We're failing our kids. It's as simple as that.
I don't think anybody doubts the motivation. I think where we get to where we all want to get to probably requires a longer conversation, I think, and I think we'd be happy to do that if that's okay. And Mr. McCluskey is going to respond as well.
So, obviously I don't agree necessarily with every statement that you've made there, Councillor Cuthbert, and that's where we are. I think what is really important for elected members to understand is, those self-evaluations are transparent and public, and we're happy to put them in front of elected members in any format that you think is right, because they are transparent and public. They're available in standards and quality reports. If you choose to, you can go to our website, you go to individual school websites and you'll see those ratings. I think, though, that we have to question what's the motivation that we want to get. We want things to improve, and I think that's where we do agree with each other. Well, we might disagree with where we currently are. The vehicle for that improvement is our education improvement plan, and that comes here to committee every year, and there's a real opportunity there. That's quite a detailed plan, but there's an opportunity there for elected members of Learning and Families Committee to really get under the surface of that plan as well and ask us the questions that they want reassurance round about improvement across the piece. So I think that fulfills our need really as a joint endeavour to create that improvement that we're all looking for across education, and that's all sectors of education. I'm not particularly sitting here singling out any one sector other than another, and I think that's really important. There's a total journey of learning here from 2 to 18 and beyond that we need to be mindful of as well. So I think that's a reasonable offer of transparency about the plans to move ahead to improve for elected members.
Mr. Shires.
I just wanted to make a comment about, I think I would argue with Councillor Cuthbert's use of the word failing our children and young people, because I think when you start using language like that, it's really unfair, actually. And I found the session we had, I can't remember the guy's name from Education Scotland or the inspectorate or whatever it was, who talked about the national process of the inspection regime, because I'd been quite critical of the fact that I picked out Meagle Primary that was inspected before my daughter started in primary 1 and then wasn't re-inspected until this year, and she's now second year at uni. That's a long period, but the outcome of that inspection actually said what we expected it to say. And when you speak to head teachers who've gone through the process, it's that bit, and we've discussed it before at committee, about the confidence of school leaders to actually be able to say, this is where we are. And actually what they were kind of lacking in was actually highlighting how good they were in certain aspects. So that's kind of a convoluted way of saying that I think the process is robust within, from what I've seen anyway, within schools, the quality improvement. And I was quite critical of that as in the early days as a councillor, of the quality improvement management process that we had. I thought that was just, a layer that could be easily taken away, but actually they are quite robust in the way that they challenge colleagues in schools about how well they're doing. And the local management groups, again, that's been real. There's been a change in the way that that's done in peer. I don't know, I can never remember the language that's used around it, but peer assessment of each other and where they are and where they need to improve. So you have to kind of patchwork it all together to see what's happening out there in our schools. And every school you go into, they're always talking about improvement and going out and looking at examples of good practice elsewhere and professional reading and all of that stuff. And I genuinely don't see what you're seeing, Dave. And I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you, Councillor Sayers. Councillor Cuthbert, I know you've got a separate comment. Feel free to come back in anything that you want to come back on to.
Yeah, I think we need to have this discussion offline. What I was going to say is that I really like the new report with all the various schools that have been inspected, detailing those over the years. I think it's really good.
Thank you, Councillor Cuthbert. We will have the conversation offline as we already do, because I think where we do agree is we're all passionate about what we discuss here, and I think that's the one thing that we've all got in common. Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? Caroline?
I just wanted to agree with Dave about the format. I think is really helpful. And yeah, if we could have a wider discussion about the quality improvement management journey, that would be helpful.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks everyone. Thanks, James, for the way you've done this report as well. That seems to have gone down well. So thanks very much. Thank you, everyone. I think that's us. That's us done. So thanks everyone for bearing with the second part of this, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.